tonight I'm going to talk about Kings of War Armada and tell you why it's the naval game that I didn't really think I needed. Now, naval games have always kind of interested me. However, the historical aspect of it has never really been like my kind of thing. Really, I've never been into kind of sort of Napoleonics. I've never been into like sort of Black Powder, that kind of stuff. So games like Black Seas, whilst they look very attractive, didn't really grab me the same way. I picked up Dreadfleet many years ago, as I'm sure many of you did too. I loved that kind of fantasy aesthetic. However, the fact that it basically got pretty much bashed from release, kind of I was going to say took the wind out of my sails to use a bit of a corny line there, but it kind of did dampen it for me, and I couldn't really get anybody to be interested to play the game, so it kind of sat on a shelf and it's been pretty much unplayed. I did also pick up Cruel Seas. I fancied playing a bit of a naval combat game, but again, the rule book was badly written. There were lots and lots of errors in it when it was first printed, and again, I just never really got around to doing anything with it. Games like Man of War, like Uncharted Seas, games like Dystopian Wars, I've been aware of them, but those games were discontinued long before I ever really kind of started looking at naval games, and none of my kind of local players ever played those games, so I never really got a chance to give them a try. So when Nick told me about this game, I was obviously interested in it because it was a new game, and I'm always interested in new games, but I wondered if it was something that I'd really be interested in. I knew it was based upon the Black Seas rules, but I didn't really know much about Black Seas rules, so I wasn't sure whether it was something that would sort of really interest me. And in that case, I couldn't really make a firm judgment on whether I thought it would be something for me or not. And I knew for me it would come down to probably a couple of things. One would be the quality of the ships themselves, the sculpts, and were the rules accessible enough for me to be able to get my head around it, to be able to teach new players to play it as well, and it being a bit more casual rather than a really kind of historically accurate rule set. Because I knew it was based on Black Seas, and I didn't know how much Black Seas was a bit of a simulation rather than a kind of almost arcadey type sort of type game. Now, since then, I've done a lot more research. I've obviously got the rule book now, so I've read that cover to cover. I've looked into Black Seas to understand a bit more about it, and now I can kind of tell you some of the things that's been changed between the two different rule sets. And I can definitely say that, like Matt Gilbert from Mantic and the team that's been involved have they've made some good changes that I think will benefit a fantasy rule set. So a few of the things that kind of stand out to me in the early points really is, if anybody's familiar with Black Seas, you will know that the wake markers off the back of the ships, those little kind of things that tell you whether you're at full sail or whether you're anchored, they've all been taken away. Matt's done away with those. There is now basically tokens that you will put on your ship cards to tell you at what speed you're at. The little clips that used to be around the edge of those Black Seas cards as well, that tell you how many hull points damage you've taken, they were fiddly as hell as well. They've been taken away, and there is a space on the card where you put damage tokens now. One big difference between the two games, and it might not seem a big difference to most people, but one big difference is the fact that the ships for Armada come on bases. So you can install them yourself, for example. They don't come on the bases, but you have to put them onto a base of a certain size, depending upon the size of the ship. And it might seem kind of trivial at first, but if you watch any Black Seas videos, you'll see just how kind of inaccurate and how kind of fiddly it is to do the turning angles, to be able to kind of measure properly with the ships, and actually just putting them onto a rectangular base tidies all of that up. It makes the turning angles, thank you very much, Arnold, thank you very much. It makes all of the turning angles much sharper. It makes the measuring much more accurate. If you're trying to measure between ships for ranges and things, it means you're always measuring from the right points. So even just putting them on bases has actually had a big effect on the game. The ship cards themselves have increased in size as well, so they're a kind of a standard size for Black Sails. The new ship cards for Armada are the same size as the Walking Dead character cards, if anybody's familiar with them, so they're quite a size. And this means that there's plenty of space on those cards to put your tokens, so that the actual board itself, your kind of like your sea board, doesn't get littered with lots and lots of tokens. You can put those tokens onto the actual cards. And obviously in Black Seas, a lot of those ships look very, very similar. That's not the case with Kings of War Armada, because it's fantasy. The ships are much more kind of fantastical. The wind rules. There's been a little bit of discussion online about wind rules. Now in Black Seas, in the core part of the rules, I think there's 6 different directions that the wind can come from, and it makes it slightly more complex than I think it needs to be initially. And obviously in this game, in a fantasy game, it's not just about sails. Some boats have oars. Some boats actually have engines when it comes to things like the dwarves and stuff. So the wind, for all it plays an important part in the game, it needs to be changed a little bit to enable it to kind of level it out a little bit and balance it between ships with sails and ships with engines and stuff. So there's been a simplified version of the wind rules have been put into the game. However, the original wind rules from Black Seas are put in as an additional rule or an advanced rule. So if you want to play with those slightly more complex wind rules, they are in the game. They're there for you to use. If you just think it's one more thing to remember and to get in the way of having fun, you can completely leave it out. It's entirely up to you. So they are optional. And also the addition of magical items. Obviously, there's no magical items in what's it called, in Black Seas. Thank you very much, Bjorn, as well. I just saw that flash up on my screen. There's no magical items in Black Seas for obvious reasons. And I like the way that Matt's incorporated them. They kind of link into the Kings of War universe as well. So it's not... if you're familiar with Kings of War, there's some nice little kind of crossovers with those. Within Black Seas, you roll low on a dice to try and achieve something. So if you roll a 1, it is a critical 1. You've done a critical hit on a 1. Matt's turned them around now, so if you're rolling on a D10, a 10 is now a critical roll. It might seem like a trivial thing, and you might be thinking, well, why even bother changing it? One thing is, in all Kings of War games, higher is better. The other one is, it's a bit less mental maths. You might not think it, actually, but when you're so used to kind of rolling high is better, and when it comes to doing things like taking damage on your ships or whatever, counting up until you hit like a nerve value or something, it's much easier to count up rather than to count up your tokens and then take it away from your ship's total. It's surprising, but it speeds it up. I've kind of pushed some bits of kind of cardboard around the right size just to work through the rules, and you'd be surprised kind of just what a difference it makes. The rules around building a fleet, really, really simple. Nothing too complex in there. I think Matt mentioned it on the Countercharge podcast, so I'm not kind of upsetting anybody by revealing that. But essentially, there's rules in there to stop you just taking sort of lots and lots of very, very small boats and kind of like outmaneuvering or kind of like outshooting your opponent like that. They're very simple rules, though, nothing too difficult. For example, if you want to buy a starter box and your friend buys a starter box and one of you wants the Basileans and one of you wants the Orcs and you split them, all of those ships will be possible to use in a 2-player game. So if you use 2 lots of Basileans, your opponent uses 2 lots of Orcs, both of those things will be available to use. Within Black Seas, there's a couple of different tables for critical hits, which really goes into quite sort of a little bit of extra detail that I don't think the game needs. It's things about kind of damaging sails and damaging rudders and lots of different things. There's 2 tables, because in Black Seas you can shoot high and you can shoot low as well. That's been streamlined down. It's much easier to understand now, but still keeps the theme of kind of those big critical hits, kind of taking out the sails or damaging the rudder, so it can only turn you can only turn right on your next activation or something until you can repair it. Within Black Seas, there's a break value, and it's been replaced with a nerve value. It still kind of works the same way, but it links in again with the Kings of War universe. Within Black Seas, there's a lot of ammunition choices as well in the more advanced rules. That's kind of been removed from this because you have a mixture of like magical kind of spells and things as well as cannons and stuff. So it's dealt with a little bit more simply, but it's not like dumbing the game down. There's been modifications to hit charts as well. It's been simplified. Within the Black Seas rules, there's some kind of complications around fire, which gun you fired first and in what order. It's been simplified for this game, and it's basically if you're firing from the broadsides or if you're firing from the front or the rear, it all counts as one thing. Collision damage is handled a little bit more variably in this. So if two ships hit each other, there's a lot of things to try and stop the ships hitting each other. You can do evading maneuvers and all sorts of things. But if it's unavoidable and your ship does hit something, the collision damage is sort of a bit more variable. So it's not as obvious, which is a good thing, I should add. There's some advanced rules from Black Seas that are actually part of the core rules for Armada, which is interesting. So it's not like all of the theme and all of the flavor being pulled out to make it easy. There's actually some of the stuff that is in the advanced rules for Black Seas that is actually in the core rules for Armada. And then there's a few bits of advanced rules like musket fire and things have been removed as well. So, folks, I'm going to start to show you some ships now. I'm going to show you the Dwarf Starter Set and explain a little bit about what ships you get in them as well. Because I think we've seen the stuff that's coming in the first wave. This is the stuff that is coming in January. So what you'll see here is this is the Dwarf Starter Set. I think the box might be a bit of a mock-up, but the contents should stay the same. And what we've got in this Dwarf Starter Set is we've got one Grimstone, which is the ship to the right-hand side there. The Grimstone is a medium ship. We've got one Runax, which is the medium ship to the left. And then at the bottom there, we've got one Thunderer, which is a small ship. And for those that don't know, basically, the ships in Armada come in tiny, small, medium, large, and extra large. And for those of you that come in for the extra large, we'll get to that one in a little bit. So this is what those ships are going to be in the starter set. I believe the price has been quoted as £29.99. I don't have the other exchange rate prices, but I'm sure you'll be able to find these online at the standard pricing. And you get 3 resin ships in that box. You get the cards that you need as well to field them, and you obviously get the bases too. I think they're MDF bases in these ones. So this is the Dwarf Booster Set. There's 4 ships in this one. And again, as I mentioned before, these are all coming out in January 2021, all going to plan. In this one, there is one Runax ship, which has extra additional parts for it. So it's not the same as the Runax that's in the starter box. That is the one on the left-hand side there. You can't see me moving my mouse. But yeah, it's the one to the left-hand side in the middle. There is one Fury ship, which is the small one at the bottom. That's a small ship. And then there are 2 Hunter ships, which are the 2 to the right and at the top there. Those 2 are the same ships, and they are small ships. Now you might be thinking, like, where's all of the large ships for the Dwarfs? Essentially, Dwarfs have kind of engine-powered ships. They haven't got big sails on them. They're quite obviously much more armoured. They're a bit more. They're obviously less susceptible to wind if you're using the additional rules. So the Dwarfs, they're short, and they're kind of like armor clad. So there isn't any large ships as of yet for the Dwarfs. There is an extra large ship, which is called. Actually, I'm not sure if I'm not. Yeah, I am allowed to give that one because everyone's seen the big kind of beigey coloured one with all the different ships on. I think it's called the Dreadnought. I think it is. So there is an extra large ship for that one, but we haven't seen that. The extra large ships are releasing a little bit later. Not back end of next year, but after Wave 2. So that's the Dwarf ships. So this is the Empire of Dust starter set, and in this one you can see the small ship on the bottom left hand side there. That is a Soul Hunter, and again, obviously it's a small ship. We've then got a medium ship to the top left there. That one is the Capici, which is particularly nice. Actually, I like these. I must admit, these ones are particularly I like the style of these ones. They're a bit different. And then the large ship to the right hand side there is called a War Galley, and it looks pretty cool there. So the three ships in this one. Again, all of the cards and the MDF bases come with this one as well. So the stats will be on those cards. Right, onto the Empire of Dust booster. So here we've got the booster one, and I think people may have seen these, but I'm not sure if they've seen like any particularly kind of better quality pictures of them. These ones are particularly good quality pictures. And in this one, we have the medium bottom left. The bottom left there, the medium one is another Capiche. We have the medium ship to the top right with the big sail as well. That one is a Dust Chaser. And then we have two. You'll see that like there's two smaller ones, top left and bottom right, and there's two ships on the base as well of these ones. And these are what's called slave squadrons. Squadrons are something that is mentioned in the rules. I don't want to go into too much detail because they've not been talked about yet. But that's what essentially they are. They are a kind of like they're a squadron of smaller ships, and that's why there's a couple of them on the base. They do come separate from the base. They're not kind of fitted to the base, so you can model them however you like. But yes, that's what they are. So that's what's coming in Wave 2 in January next year. 2 more factions. There are 4 more factions that have been play tested and are being looked at the minute. One of them is Kingdoms of Men. We know that one from the podcast that Matt was on. The other 3 haven't been revealed yet. So we'll know more once Matt come to reveal that one. So we've got a great crowd in now, all 332 of you. I'm going to switch across and I'm going to show you the first reveal of the XL ship. Yes, so this one, no prizes for guessing which faction this one is from. This is the Basilean ship, and this one is the Dictator class. Now, there are 2 different types of dictators. One of them is a named ship. I don't think I've got the details in front of me here, but no, I don't think I have actually, or I might have, but I might not be allowed to read that one. But yeah, so this one is the Dictatorship. This one is the XL size. So this is going to be the biggest of the ships, or the biggest of the bases that you will see in the game. I'm assuming that we're not going to get any extra large ships later on down the line, but this one basically has a lot of firepower. I haven't seen the rules for this yet, so I can't tell you kind of just how much more powerful it is than other ships. But basically, from a theme point of view, and from you can see from the sides of it and stuff, there is a lot of firepower on this particular ship. And it says here that it has 3.5 gun decks, which I think what you can see up the side, I think they're essentially like the different gun decks coming from the side of it. So I'll leave that up for a little bit while I catch up with the chat so you can all have a good look at it. And I'll pop back into the chat here on my screen.
Thanks for watching my video. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you did, why not consider clicking on the suggested video below to see more of the work that I've done. If you'd like to support the long-term sustainability of this channel, why not consider checking out my Patreon, where you can pledge and support from as little as $2 a month. And there is lots of different tiers and bonuses, which will give you access to a private Discord server. It will give you free t-shirts, free mugs, a podcast every month, and a number of other things, including getting your name at the end of every video, like these awesome folks who already support me now.